Welcome to Out of Nowhere, where we talk with marketers, makers, and value creators about where they've been and where they're going next. Let's dive in. I'm Justin Watkins of Native Digital. Today we're talking Proptech with Brian from measurabl, the world's most widely adopted ESG platform for commercial real estate.
If I think about the story of the company, it's pretty unique in the sense that our founder came out of commercial real estate, and our organization is what's considered ESG technology. So ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. It's an up and coming industry. More entities, more groups are focusing on this. That it's not just about I think the past term was greenwashing, right? It's not just about putting recycling bins in your break areas. It's going beyond that and really measuring what you're doing on a monthly, weekly, annual basis. So Matt started the organization having worked at CBRE and then working on sustainability with CBRE, one of the biggest commercial real estate groups in the world, and noticed this gap in terms of being able to record that data and then report on it. Essentially, just give a good kind of snapshot of how your organization's doing on the commercial real estate side. Because the big thing for us is there are about 1/3 of what contributes to what contributes to the environment and climate change. Like 1/3 of it is in real estate, right? So a big chunk of it has some things they need to do, right? And so when I was looking for my next position, it's pretty neat to go work for a company that the charter is to have these organizations and these groups go do something really good for the environment, for the planet. And then in that vein, the thing that I found was all of the employees that I met throughout the way and the ones that I've met and become acquainted with through working there for about 15 months, that stayed true. They come from a very empathetic spot, a caring spot, and then that translates into work that I'd been doing other places in which that aspect was not part of the work.
Well, I think that's one of the coolest things about property tech is, and commercial real estate tech, is that it often is climate tech, because I don't think people understand how much of the sort of environmental issues come from real estate. All we hear on the news is transportation. Mm-hmm. And so it's just completely overlooked. And I think a lot of people are surprised when they hear that there's so much more opportunity and your technology is one of those things that is necessary. You have to track it before you know how to improve it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And if you think about someone with a commercial portfolio of even 20 buildings, but we have some with hundreds, the idea of saying, well, how are they all performing when it comes to energy specifically? And then you're going into the water, waste, electricity. It ends up being multiple tabs on a spreadsheet and pulling in billing information from however many different utility companies you work with and however many zip codes you're a part of. So the value prop is pretty easy, that you should be automating that data collection and then reporting on it. So yeah, it seems to fill that gap pretty easily.
So in the ESG space, it seems like in some cases there's a lot of emphasis on one of those three letters, but maybe not on another. Do you see that in your case? Do you see that people are looking more for one side of the ESG versus the other?
Yeah, they definitely focus on the E. And then it is I think that's the one that probably, motivates an organization to start acting and being more regimented about that process. And then the S and the G usually come later. They involve additional departments and titles within an organization. It involves the tenants of the commercial properties that we work with. But most of the times when it comes to the technology there, we're at this point a repository when it comes to the social and governance pieces that they're putting in. What they have decided is important to them and what they want to measure, that fits into our software. But there's not a data collection of those items. So it's a little bit softer of a engagement, I feel like. Many times groups will hire consultants or outside partners to help them with the S and the G. So how are they looking at diversity, social issues? How are they addressing those internally with their employees or their tenants? And hopefully at the end of the day, our technology plus a mix of that will help them in their ESG for sure.
So I'm guessing when you're talking to prospective customers or clients, in some cases they may look at this as a bit of a nice to have or something they'll do someday. But I'm guessing you also have others who wish they would have done it years ago, if they could have. What's the for people who are on the Measurabl platform? What are the things that they appreciate and don't want to give up now that they've had it?
Yeah, I think on the the very like I'll kind of go on the spectrum of amount of resources and time and lift to do something, right? Very early on, they say, this is wonderful because I'm not in these spreadsheets all the time now with all this utility data. And most of the time, that customer would come into Measurabl a little reactionary. They've been asked to report to GRESB, which is our #1 reporting entity out of Europe, and they will get a score annually on how they're doing, and they can benchmark themselves against the ESG numbers. And so what we do is we help them submit to that, and then we help them analyze where they can make improvements and how they can address that for the next year. What happens is then like they kind of get a taste of that information, much like we would in marketing. It's like you get a little bit of data about your prospects or your leads, then you will kind of want to know more, and you want to act on that. You want to know more, you want to act on that. And so that's what we see with our customers is, and that kind of follows our product. We have most of our folks come in on the kind of the first tier and then realize they want to get more sophisticated about ESG. And so that means that they go to the next tier because they want to do some of those things. And those types of items then lead you to looking at like physical climate risk, gives you the opportunity to look at additional financing that maybe you didn't know you could go after because of this information that you now have. So it's a little bit of you can almost kind of plot it out, right? Like this customer journey. They come in and it's like, help us fix the data, help us report to GRESB, and then the natural progression is to then kind of dial it up.
So is that the point in the conversation where you've got them interested? Is whenever is it basically just relieving the pain point of spreadsheets, or what's that like messaging point that whenever you hit them with that, they're like, oh, okay, I get it now?
Yeah, I think it's it's a mixed bag there, because we have, when we take a look at our personas, we have the novice ESG professional. This might be someone that was given this task to report to GRESB and they've never worked in sustainability in their life. So in that discussion, they're really looking to get out of those spreadsheets, and they're really just looking to kind of check the box for this. And then that's where we see that progression to more sophistication. Now, we also take on customers where their title might be Director of Sustainability, and the company's charge has really been, a big part of why they're talking to us and working with us. Those conversations are sped up, right? Like they're, and the aha moment for them will be around being able to measure physical climate risk. We have a feature in our software where you can go in by zip code and building type and say, how are we doing compared to them? So I think that's kind of that, and I think that happens with a lot of industries, right? You look intrinsically at yourself for a long time, and then there's a moment in time where you go, well, how are we doing against the others? So. Yeah,
that's cool. There's something motivating about that, right? We're talking about an industry of very competitive people too. I think that probably helps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you look forward to next year or maybe the coming years, is there a goal that you guys are going after that you're excited about trying to get to, or is there maybe like a problem that you're tired of dealing with and you're looking forward to getting past that piece?
For our team, we have a couple of reasons to be optimistic about 2022. One is the organization just took our Series C investment a little over a month ago. And that means expansion into other markets, including Europe. But also we will launch 2 brand new product lines in 2022. So there's a lot of opportunity baked into those ideas. Our marketing team will go from 4 to roughly 10 by the end of second quarter of 2022. So a lot of things occurring with that now, like planning, roles, responsibilities, how that's going to shake out. One of the things from a marketing perspective that we're looking forward to is attacking the awareness side of the business and the challenge from our team's perspective. The challenge we have in marketing is a lot of the targets and prospects that we would go after have not self-identified through engagement online, through titles, through whatever it might be on LinkedIn. as ESG professionals. And so we feel like from an addressable market standpoint, we've got about half of our prospects. We can kind of find out who they are, where they're at, what their business is like. Then the other half was we're trying to catch them as they come into the ESG industry as a whole. And so for us, what's really exciting is we've got a couple initiatives for 2022 that we think will help that. One of which is our CEO, Matt, will be publishing a book in the first quarter on his perspectives on ESG and commercial real estate. There's nothing out there, so that fills that kind of gap for that. That's really exciting promotion for us. And then I think the expansion into the other markets is what, our marketing expansion from a resource and associate level standpoint matches the same investments of the company there as well. So more sales team members, more products available for Europe, those types of things. And so we'll have to match that for the next year.
It's kind of a basic concept, but I'd love to hear a little bit from you on why you think brand awareness is important, because I swear, working with technology companies for years, I've heard the word awareness more this year than ever before. Typically, it's very bottom of the funnel acquisition efforts. We might talk about getting messaging right, but they're not saying the word top of funnel. They're not saying awareness. And all of a sudden it's like, we got to do a brand campaign. We got to do brand awareness. And it's kind of come out of left field. And sometimes these things goes in cycles, but I don't know I'm still trying to put my finger on why this is, or maybe it's just what we're hearing, but I'm hearing this a lot in conversation right now.
There could be a couple reasons for that. The first thing that comes to mind goes a little bit back to what I just mentioned around this idea that we can't identify, if I'm targeting, my past was in healthcare tech and we targeted revenue cycle management. I can get to a pretty good place of finding who those individuals are and how we should target them. So our idea is to cast this big net just in terms of search, when people are going out and looking for advice. I mean, with ESG being so new, a lot of folks are raising their hand like, we need help with this. So I think that's one of the pushes to awareness. I also think, we're pointing towards it because we're kind of done with trade shows. And so, I, for one, for years would want to dare the sales team to say no to trade shows for an entire year and let us have that budget and see what happens. And if the results go down drastically, we'll bring them back into the fold. COVID kind of did that for us, right? It did that for us. It said, you're not going to go to these trade shows. And we saw double-digit revenue growth, and we saw double-digit lead growth. And so I like that part of that experiment for us. But I think when it comes to like thinking about awareness for 2022 and why there might be more of a reason for that, it's a lot of those opportunities were kind of missed, and I don't know if it's scientific or not, but it's just, were we out there and were we talking about our company and what we were working on, if that makes sense.
Well, I think you're dead on, especially for B2B brands. There's a trade show budget that was lightly used, if at all. And you're right, you've identified a piece of your addressable market, but not all of it. And some of them are kind of hiding in plain sight. You can't figure out which one's which, right? So that's one. I think the other piece that we see is just that the conversion isn't what it should be at the bottom of the funnel. And after doing every single thing they could think of, it's like the last resort. It's like, I guess we'll tell people who we are, through an awareness campaign. And it's like the last thing they want to do in many cases. They'll invest in PR without thinking about it, but the awareness, it takes a little bit. Like, you have to kind of run into an obstacle before you want to do that. It's just a little backwards. I mean, in a lot of other industries, it's the first thing you think about it. So it's interesting to see it.
I welcome the opportunity and the challenge, because my past two stops, we wanted to push awareness as, what I would say maybe a 50-50 split. If you're talking about resources and budget, lead generation, awareness, 50-50. And we could never get there, right? One, because the story is a little bit harder to tell on how the awareness led to the bottom of the funnel conversion. So, we can do our best there. But yeah, it was just this drive for leads. Brian, your team, we got to bring in leads. And so then you start kind of pointing everything towards that, kind of forgetting about that. So, I used to work in PR. And so I welcome the opportunity for us to take this on for next year. And we look forward to it.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, hey, just to switch gears a little bit, if you look for, you guys are really trying to lead the charge on ESG from the commercial real estate side. are there predictions that your team talks about, in the next 5 or 10 years, we think the industry is going to do this? Are these the types of conversations that you're having internally, or is there something that, collectively you guys are debating on, or maybe not debating, maybe you all are on the same page on where you think the industry is going?
We feel a lot of, I keep using the word optimism, but there is, you can kind of see what happens in Europe and get a feel for what we might be in for. Now, I know that with different administrations and laws and regulations, our industry can kind of change on a dime, but I don't think in the near, like if I think about the next 5 years, I think we'll be even better positioned to be ready for some of these things that are coming down from the government. And we don't rely on that, right? Europe is way more progressive than the United States is when it comes to ESG and sustainability reporting and how all that works in their economy. But you can see even through small municipalities in the United States where they're saying, we'd like to focus on this with all of our commercial real estate. Well, then the thought is we kind of compare that to Europe, and even though it's a little bit behind and maybe not as aggressive, it means that is coming. And so, I mean, just by the inbound activity that we have to our content and to our subject matter experts, it's more than a gut feeling that this is not going away. And so, if I think about our team and what we want to view as like our challenges or where the opportunity lies for the 5-10 years, I think ESG will be a more common term, right? I live in the Midwest. When I first got the job, I asked my three friends in the network that work in commercial real estate, have you heard of ESG? Blank stare. They didn't know what it was. I assume within the next year or so, they'll probably know about ESG.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I mean, it sounds like not only is this the trend and this is where it's going, rightfully so, but it's something that your team's pretty motivated about too, right? Like not just be required to do that, but you like what comes along with that, right?
Yeah. There's a feel good part of it that I think it's. I had a little bit in healthcare, but we were on the revenue cycle, so that's a little bit harder of a connection to make to the good that you were providing. So. This has been the most fulfilling in terms of a career stop for sure.